Hello guys, we really need to talk about drugs. Drugs, it's something that a lot of people do, and a lot of people are shunning and shaming people that are using drugs. And I feel like as a community, as a society, we are very misinformed about drugs. And that's just because there's a stigma that has been on drugs for a very, very, very long time. People will often say drugs are bad. In order for that statement to be valid, you're actually saying drugs are drugs. This is something I do not agree with. If I say meat is meat, it doesn't mean that a piece of beef is the same as a piece of pig. The same thing applies for drugs. If I give you a bag of cocaine, you say this is cocaine, you cannot say it's weed. Cocaine, it's completely different from weed. And obviously they are both drugs, but they are not the same. There's a lot of people that are thinking differently as well. They're like, nah, drugs are not per se bad. I agree, drugs are not bad. Actually, drugs can be good. Drugs can be very good. Some people, they'll say, oh no, drugs are not bad, just to justify their use of drugs. That is also a bullshit thing to do. If you're going to a rave party, you're popping some pills, I ask you, do you even know what the active compound in the ecstasy is? And you have no clue. Then it's not justifiable by saying drugs are good. And for example, you do know what's in it. You tell me like, it's MDMA. If I ask you, what does MDMA do in your body? What are the risks of MDMA? What are the upsides of MDMA? How much MDMA should you take? And you have no answer to that. Then again, you cannot justify it by just saying drugs are good. Many of the drugs that are out there can be very, very dangerous. What I want to do is shed some light on the difference between certain drugs. I know this is very controversial, but just in the back of your head, take the statement, drugs can be good. So first of all, different kinds of drugs have different kinds of effects. Let's first look at some of the shit that is happening right now. Obviously, the weed is being legalized in a lot of places. Look at the classification of the American drug system. Weed, psilocybin, LSD, they are in the same class as heroin. Saying that weed is almost as dangerous as heroin, that's just stupid. Nobody ever died from smoking too much weed. What scares me even more is that in the second class, which is supposed to be less dangerous, is coke and meth. Fucking crystal meth is better for you than weed or psilocybin or LSD. How fucking crazy is that? Before I keep rambling on over all the positive and all the good things about drugs, I'll throw some hard facts at you. A lot of studies are being done. For example, they use LSD and psilocybin for people who have end-of-life anxiety. Imagine you have terminal cancer. You know you're going to die in 4 weeks and it's going to stress you out. They give these people a regular amount of LSD or mushrooms. After they went through this, this mystical experience, they come to peace. They come to terms with the fact that they're dying. That is a major upside for these people. Now, let's take a look at MDMA, for example. MDMA is single-handedly the most effective way to cure people with PTSD. Using MDMA. I mean, just think about that for a moment. Look at how a substance so illegal can be so profound, so good. When I was a kid, I'd be like, ecstasy? Hell no, man. If I'm gonna take ecstasy, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna OD like in the movies. I'm gonna fall off some kind of big building, crash into the car, and I'll be dead. It's not the case. Another thing for LSD, it's the microdosing. You take a very tiny dose of LSD or psilocybin, your entire day becomes just like a tiny bit better. You become more creative, more social, more spiritual, you become more open, like everything is just a bit better. And now people might say, you take the LSD, boy, right now, you're gonna die. You're gonna die of the LSD. No, I'm not gonna die of the LSD. Albert Hofmann, who synthesized LSD for the first time, he microdosed the last 3 decades of his life. The man turned 101. And then people come up to me and say like, oh, you do LSD, man. You're gonna die of the LSD, bro. I'm like, fuck no. You're drinking alcohol. Alcohol is the best example. Alcohol is a widely accepted drug in our society. Yet alcohol is responsible for 5% of global deaths. 5% of people that die because of something related to alcohol. Maybe disease, it might be an overdose, it might be drunk and drive. You kill a kid and then you drive into a pool and kill yourself as well. And yet everybody's like, alcohol, yay, let's drink alcohol. That brings me to another point, and that is prescription drugs. The prescription drugs, they are responsible for the most drugs-related overdoses. Imagine you're being depressed, you're anxious, you don't even dare to go outside anymore. You're just sitting in your room all day, scared about everything. And what they're doing is they're numbing you. They're numbing your brain, they're numbing your body. So it's not really fixing the problem, it's more like fixing the symptoms. Like the psilocybin, they also use this just for people in general. They gave them a session on psilocybin, and in the 6 months after that, all the people who did the sessions said they became happier, they became nicer, they became more relaxed, more peaceful. Also the people around them said like, yeah, he's really acting nicer. You know, Fran, he used to be such a fucking douchebag, you know, yelling all the fucking time. Be like, fuck you, man, I need to get this work done. And all of a sudden, he's so chill. He's like, okay, you know, can happen, no worries, we'll fix it. By using a mushroom. Rather than numbing my body, and I'm not even saying I'm just sitting there. Now it's gonna bring me to the part that is really important. Before everybody's going out there and starts popping pills, you know, taking LSD, do some mushrooms while you're at it, and maybe drink a beer. Don't. First thing you need to do is educate yourself. It's okay to try drugs, it's okay to experiment. Inform yourself. Take ecstasy. The active compound in ecstasy is MDMA. MDMA is far less dangerous than alcohol. But the problem is, however, is PMMA. It's one of the substances that gets confused with MDMA. People die from this shit. I'm not gonna lie about it, I'm gonna be blunt. People die from this shit. Same thing goes for LSD. So there's a substance that is very similar called 25I MDMA. Looks the same, it only tastes a slightly bit more bitter, and it can kill you. You think you're taking the same thing, you're both tripping out. One thing is perfectly safe, the other thing is gonna kill you. And there comes the role that also should be played by government, by schools, by parents. They should help with this education, and they should help with the research. For example, in the Netherlands, you can test your drugs. I can go in there and be like, hello, my name is Fran. I bought these ecstasy pills from my dealer, but I'm not sure if there's MDMA in them. Would you mind testing them real quick? How many ecstasy-related deaths do we have in the Netherlands on an annual basis? Close to zero? Maybe 1, 2 every now and then? Look at countries where it's not tested in this way. People are dying. Not because of the drugs, but because they take the bad drugs. There are risks to drugs. There is no known records of people overdosing on LSD, mushrooms, or weed. But if you're gonna freak out on LSD and you're on your own and you're gonna go into the traffic and you get hit by a car, you're still dead. And dead is dead. For MDMA, for example, there's definitely some risks. If it's a 30-degree party and you're just like, it's the kind of party that I do, and you're tripping on ecstasy, and you are not drinking any water, well, you can get a heat stroke, of course. That is a risk. That is dangerous. You need to be careful. That's why we educate ourselves. That's why we look after our friends. That's why we make sure we have actual good drugs. So, in relation to the education, that sounds like a fucking rap. In relation to the education, you should go on the internet and get some, hopefully unbiased sources of information. If you find a website that says, help people get rid of drugs, the drugs are bad, and it says drugs information, that's gonna be biased, of course. If you see a website that's like, drugs is the best, we're the hippie boys, everybody on drugs all day long, that information is gonna be very biased as well. This organization that's doing a lot of research right now, especially on psychedelic drugs, it's called maps.org. Another information source I like is thethirdwave.co. And you should definitely check out these 2 Tim Ferriss podcasts as well. So, what should you take away from all this? Point number 1, drugs are drugs is a bad statement. Number 2, educate yourself. This is probably the most important one, so I'm gonna say it again. Educate yourself. Third, it should be regulated. The government should educate us, they should regulate us. There should be testing available. Fourth, take clean drugs. And 5, challenge assumptions. Hell, I know I had them. I thought LSD was fucking dangerous. I thought MDMA was fucking dangerous. I thought a whole lot of shit was fucking dangerous. But I didn't know that alcohol was dangerous than all of those. So educate yourself, have a good time, take good drugs, and please be safe. Because that's the most important. Fran out. Fiction or non-fiction? Fiction books being books that are based on fantasy, and non-fiction books being based on reality.